My name is Carissa Morris, and I am the Special Projects Coordinator and a Community Health Worker at Aspen out of Indiana. And today I am interviewing Michelle Glenn to learn more about what it is to be a community health worker. Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi Carissa. My name is Michelle Glenn. I am a certified community health worker and also a training instructor here at Aspen. I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. I'm excited to interview you and learn more about the community health worker field. My first question for you is, what is the role of a community health worker?
Great question, Carissa. So, the role of a community health worker, or CHW for short, is that we are valuable resources in our community. We bridge the gap that connects our community to the healthcare system. As CHWs, we're not just any healthcare worker, though. We're a trusted support that everyone can rely on. We connect people with health services, making sure they get the care they need and that it respects their background and their culture. As a CHW, again, you're not just about health, you're all about providing information and connecting people to the support that they need. Community health workers are able to spend more time with their patients, and they can do this more than a healthcare provider can do. And we have a better understanding of our patients' lives at home and how this can affect their health.
Those are some really important everyday tasks that community health workers need to do, and taking care of the general health of our community at large. So tell me, how does a community health worker usually spend their workday?
So, for community health workers, each day is different. You might be setting up appointments, providing information at a health fair, or even making sure people can travel to their appointments. You're the hero that's helping people find insurance, find affordable medicine, and even finding a place to sleep or to a meal to eat.
Right. What's the education path? What kind of training do you need to become a community health worker?
So think of becoming a CHW like taking a unique path in your education journey. Here in Indiana, you can start training to be a CHW even before you hit 18 or before you finish high school. But in order to get certified, you'll need a high school diploma and you'll need to be 18 years or older. The paths to becoming a CHW can vary from state to state, so it's all about finding the one that fits you best and also what's available in your area.
How long does it take to become a certified community health worker?
So it's a bit of a mixed bag since each state does things differently. It could take a few months or even a year, depending on the program or the state. Training can happen in person or online, so you do have options. And a lot of CHWs go for extra training to specialize in certain areas to improve their skills. Here at Aspen, we offer additional training in areas such as substance use and also domestic violence.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of, the unique path, right? Everybody's going to take a different path based on where they want to work and who they want to work with. So that kind of goes into my next question for you is, what is so unique about being a community health worker?
So, a CHW's very unique role, similar to leveling up in a game, but in real life. You're diving into the world of healthcare, and the training is quicker compared to other careers. You might even score some of the on job training or even a paid apprenticeship to support your learning. Every day is different, and you get to meet all kinds of people in your role as a CHW. Plus, you can work in many different places like hospitals, schools, or mental health centers, just to name a few. We have a better understanding of our communities we serve, and with that understanding, we're able to advocate for the needs of the community from a perspective that healthcare systems don't have.
Yeah, so what is the demand for community health workers? If somebody's interested in this type of role, can they find a job?
Most definitely, the demand for CHWs is on the rise. By 2032, experts predict 14% job growth, which is pretty sweet. You're not just helping patients stay on track, you're also filling in gaps in mental health due to workforce shortages. CHWs can have different job titles, such as community outreach specialist, family liaison, and countless other titles. There's a lot of room to make this job unique to you and the communities that you serve.
How much can a community health worker expect to make?
Yeah, so in Indiana, starting out as a CHW, you can earn between $14 to $21 per hour. And as you gain more experience, you're likely to make more. Nationally, you could be looking at anywhere between 32,000 to 73,000 a year, with the median around 46,000.
Thanks for sharing that helpful information. Learned a lot about community health workers from you today. I have one more question for you, and that is, so for the training opportunities for folks that want to become community health workers, are there scholarships or ways that they can help cover that cost of their training programs?
Definitely. So sometimes you need a little help to get started, and that's okay. So some training programs offer grants to cover the cost of the training to become a CHW. And then even some other organizations or programs may offer stipends or extra cash to support your living expenses while you're training. So that's pretty awesome. Each state has programs out there that can help cover the costs or provide reimbursements. So it's definitely worth looking into if you're interested in becoming a CHW.
Awesome. I think we covered all of the basics, and I hope that everybody learned a little bit more about this really fascinating and unique job of being a community health worker. I know I did. So thank you, Michelle, and yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you for having me. Thank you, Carissa.
This is an interview with Adam Cecil, a social worker in Michigan, as part of the SAMHSA project to get the word out about what social workers do for a living, how they got there, and what motivates them. Hello, Adam. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Good. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us what you do now, and then I'll ask you a series of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Adam Cecil. I have two jobs, as you would say. I work part-time at Michigan Medicine on one of the ICUs, the trauma burn ICU, and I do that one half of the week. And then the other half of the week, I own my own private practice where I see individual therapy clients. I do that virtually from home. And then I'm on the board of directors for the Michigan National Alliance of Social Work chapter.
Quite a handful of projects. Good for you. Thanks for being willing, on top of all that, to speak with me today. I appreciate it much. Can you provide a short summary of what you do in your work, if you don't mind, in both roles? I think folks would like to know what both of those kind of practices look like.
Yeah, so I kind of think social work kind of tends to. It's such a diverse, wonderful field where we can do lots of different things. Mentally, I have it broken down into there's two primary types of jobs, I would say, which is like case management jobs, where you're helping, people achieve things. And then, clinical, like therapy-based jobs where you're doing individual therapy. So, and I like both worlds. And I feel like right now I've got a balance of both those parts of me that I really enjoy. So on the trauma burn ICU at Michigan Medicine, I once had a friend tell me that when you come to the hospital, your life's usually in a transition. And I think as a social worker there, I'm there to help people with that transition. So no one plans to be there. People need help getting time off work. They need guidance about what services are available, what options. They need emotional support and coping. Mm-hmm. So really just like kind of going in and meeting with families and patients and seeing how I can help them basically go through this very difficult transition. Michigan Medicine has a very supportive community with donors that help patients with gas cards or meal reimbursements and other things. And so we have a pretty strong team where we try to help folks get what they need during that time. So that's the Michigan Medicine side of things. I've also worked at other hospitals as well and other case management jobs. But that's what I'm doing right now on that side of it.
Yeah. How long have you been there? You mind if I ask?
Not that long. I would say I just had my 6-month review not too long ago. I've been doing that. But before that, I worked at a inpatient psychiatric unit at a different hospital. I've worked at a federally qualified health center and different jobs along the way. Yeah.
That background, I ask you that because a lot of people who think about social work or don't know about social work are always fascinated with the range of settings that one can work in. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I stopped you. You're about to talk about your private practice, I think.
Yeah. So then the other one is seeing clients, on an individual basis, through the private practice. I I originally started doing individual therapy at the federally qualified health center I worked at, which is basically a primary care office. It's called Packard Health. It's here in Ypsilanti. It serves underserved populations. So I was doing a lot of therapy there. And when I left there, some of those clients followed me to my own private practice. And, that's meeting with people one-on-one, individually, helping people heal and recover from trauma, reframe and shape their identity in a more strength-based approach, helping them achieve higher levels of function and achievement. And, I think that both jobs are very satisfying in their own way. I don't think there's a replacement or substitute for that individual therapy session, and to see someone change on that like intimate one-on-one level.
Yeah.
And then on the case management side too, you're not with those folks as long, but it's helpful to see things go well in their own way.
What a fascinating contrast in some ways, huh? Two settings, I hadn't even thought about the length of time by which you see somebody. What a difference there. Yeah, thanks. Could you describe what you see as the purpose of both of those positions you have? Maybe there's a common purpose, or if you could just talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I think that in the individual therapy role, it's really to, I have a trauma-based lens and approach. I think most therapists would, but I think mission one is to help people through their life history. And as a therapist, you should be able to see their whole life over time and hold it in mind and help them, process. Usually what happens with traumatic events is people internalize certain negative images about themselves from those traumatic events. Usually they happen at a time where, especially if you're a child and you're young, you can't make too much sense of the world. But those issues remain, and maybe they haven't been reprocessed or challenged. So I really think that the core of individual therapy is helping people with their self-identity and how they see themselves and feel about themselves, alleviating shame and guilt and healing trauma. On the case management side, I think that it is really helping people in difficult transitions. I think that because I have a lot of repetition in dealing with auto accidents and what the claims are like, or dealing with, house fires and what services are there. Basically,
sure.
I'm there because I get the reps in and I understand the system. And when someone comes to me and they don't know how to navigate the system, they have someone there that kind of is, well, I've only been there 6 months, but becoming an expert, right? So helping people navigate systems on the second one for sure.
What drew you to social work? I think you alluded to that a bit, but what drew you to social work?
Yeah, I think that most people that are interested in social work, they usually will start by saying they have a desire to help others. And I think that I think it was initially very attractive to me, about being, I can get paid and help others. And that's a pretty satisfying life and premise. And I still stand behind that. I've kind of come throughout the years to see that many people who enter any kind of helping field, usually I think our field, and there's studies that back this up, they usually have overcome some type of hardship themselves and they want to help other people through it. So I think that resonates for many of us. And so, I think that I have no shortage on, purpose of work or the ability to get meaning from what I do. That's never been a problem in this field.
Today, I'm interviewing Lori Eldred, a social worker in Michigan. And Lori, if you could introduce yourself, and then I'll ask you a series of questions.
Hi, my name is Lori Eldred. I'm a social worker here in Michigan. I've been practicing about 20, it'll be 20 years this year that I've been in the field. I'm currently in private practice where I work specifically with other social workers and mental health professionals, and use a bunch of treatment modalities, EMDR, IFS, polyvagal, to really help address not only just primary trauma with social workers, but secondary trauma as well, and hopefully to prevent additional secondary trauma.
What do you see as the aim or purpose of the work you've done in all of those settings? Is there any kind of a common theme through all those?
I think when I look back, just what I see is really working with folks kind of at the outside of society, of our community, folks that are more marginalized. I mean, often when I was in child protective services, poverty was such a huge influence. Parents loved their children, but often they didn't have resources or supports. We don't have in my opinion, we don't have a super strong social safety net in our country, especially for parents, especially navigating the dynamics of being a parent, having multiple children, having to work, take care of them. And so I think being able to help guide people through the system as best I could was often what I was doing with folks in child protective services, CMH, because CMH is our social, our mental health safety net, even in the criminal justice system of trying to help folks and just really navigate the system and really just to be there with them. I think also to advocate and use some of the privilege I have to help people get what they needed, or at least to feel heard and what they were experiencing.
Do you have a sense of the demand for social workers now, either in mental health or other fields? Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, I do. I'm part of a workplace conditions through NASW Michigan. And so this is something we definitely talk about. I know that the demand is pretty great right now for social workers for a variety of different reasons. I think there is growing disparity in between groups. I think that there are more and more people who struggle for basic needs and access to resources. Social work also is just becoming, I think it is very common to work often with a social worker, to have a social worker that you might know or at the place that you might work at. I mean, we see social workers now in the corporate field, Fortune 500s and wellness programs. We see, social workers in police departments, at schools. I mean, we see social workers in so many more aspects. I think it's gotten very common to have a social worker in some capacity. We even have social workers in libraries, and there's just such cool synergy between social work and almost any other sector of our community. My final thoughts would be that the field is growing and evolving. There are so many ways that we can advocate and make a difference in our community. I think now more than ever, we need those folks who want to make our systems better, who want, to see folks that are struggling or marginalized, see them and their voices be counted and part of the larger community narrative. It, really calls, I think, as a social worker on your skills of compassion and empathy. And I think those are very important. I would say definitely if you're interested in social work, talk to different people doing different positions and roles in social work, because I think there has been for a long time just this really narrow focus that it's just child welfare. And it really has expanded to encompass so many aspects of our community. Like I said, I mean, you can be in a library as a social worker, at a school, in the criminal justice system, you can be in the medical field, you can even work at a corporate 500, company that's, lots of companies will hire folks to be therapists, to do wellness programs, prevent burnout, address health issues. And so definitely do your research, talk to different people in the field, and really just see if the profession will be in a good alignment with your values, your ethics, and really your unique strengths.
What a great way to put it, Lori. Thanks a ton. I can't thank you enough. I think on behalf of all the folks in the Great Lakes region and anybody who might watch this video, they've walked away with an awful lot of positive things and really powerful things about what social work's about. Lori Eldred, I want to thank you an awful lot for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you, Alex, for doing this interview with us for the Great Lakes Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. We really appreciate you taking the time. And for those of you who are listening to this or watching this, this is Alex Thomas Holland, and she's with the organization called Neighborhood Properties, Inc. And she's just going to tell us about her role and what she does. So, Alex, can you give us a little bit a background on your role and kind of what the objective of it is?
Sure. And thank you all for having me for this conversation. I really like to talk about what I do because I think it's really I won't say the fun part of mental health, but because everybody's role is important and enjoyable, but I really like what we get to do in the peer support role. So I'm the manager of the Wellness and Recovery Center at Neighborhood Properties. We are a peer respite crisis facility here in Lucas County. We are we fall on the crisis prevention side of crisis services. So we are a non-medical resource for somebody that might be experiencing emotionally distressing thoughts that could eventually lead to a full psychiatric crisis. So at the Wellness Center, we all identify as peers, as staff with lived experience. So we are peer supporters within our role, and our role is 100% our center is 100% managed by peers. So myself as the manager, the supervising coordinator, and then all of the recovery coach staffing. We really love it. It's one of the rare opportunities where you can use really some of the ugly parts of your own life and your personal story to help another person to find similarities and experiences to then help that other person improve their own circumstances. So we get to talk about ourselves and our life and how we've overcome struggles so we can be an example for other people. So we could potentially help them find their own path to recovery so that we can connect in a way that is most effective and most helpful for the client that we're serving.
Great. And you kind of went into a little bit of my next question, but how do people in this kind of peer support role spend their workday?
At the Wellness Center or a peer support role in general?
In general or at the center? Sure.
In general, you're making contact with your clients and you're meeting them where they're at. So a lot of times in Neighborhood Properties, we really like to send our peer supporters out to our clients that we know are going through a difficult time or having a hard time. And we're allowing them to do things that are completely different. On a given day, the case manager might be taking them to Job and Family Services to apply for food stamps. That's really boring. That's boring stuff. It's important, but it could be boring stuff. It could be stressful, where the peer supporter could put them in the car and take them to the movie theater or take them to the zoo. And while they're walking, you're talking about life. You're talking about how your week has gone, what those struggles are during the week. So a peer supporter really gets to help keep our clients engaged in the community, finding enjoyable aspects of their life while we're walking with them and talking to them about just things that are happening in their life. At the Wellness Center, it's very similar. So we're a residential facility. So in any given day, a peer supporter is kind of out in our main area waiting for our guests to, wake up for the day. We're cooking them meals. Sometimes we can cook meals together. We're sitting down and playing games with them, or just kind of having a real one-on-one conversation over coffee with them, or let's put on a really good movie that we might enjoy and then afterwards go out for a walk. We really get to connect with people and give them a different experience while still centering their emotional and mental well-being, but we're doing it from a different angle. Their emotional and mental well-being is still front and center. We still find ways. So if we're going to go to the zoo while we're walking around and enjoying the animals, we may be talking about, how is your day going? What are you feeling? Are you a little anxious at the moment? What's going on that's making you a little anxious? Let's see if we can find a way to cope with that, that kind of thing.
Great. And then this next question is kind of twofold, but what's the typical educational path to get this role, and how long does it usually take someone?
So at Neighborhood Properties, we ask that somebody has a high school diploma or a GED. And then, there is a certification to be a peer supporter, which I find to be incredibly important. It's not a requirement to be a peer supporter in some areas of our state, but sometimes it depends on funding, but the certification of a peer supporter is incredibly important because it really does teach you how to use your personal story to help another person. Because again, we're not the focus, but we do share information about ourselves that's important to learn how to do correctly in a way that's most effective for another person. That certification course, I would say it's about 80 hours. You have your 40 hours of online training and your 40 hours of course training. And it does require you to do an application. You get approved through the state, and then you have continuing education credits that you do throughout the year. So I really like the opportunity for people to receive that certification because it gives them ownership of what they're doing and their role. And there's also that continuing opportunity to keep learning and keep doing better and keep improving. And on top of that, at the Wellness Center, we do a decent amount of on-the-job training as well. So when we're hiring someone, we have at least 2 weeks of time where you're shadowing with another employee that's more seasoned, and you're kind of learning the day-to-day functions, the things that may happen in the center during the day. You're really seeing those happen in real time compared to going through like a manual. Obviously we have policies and procedures that we want people to study, learn, and know. But there's also a value in getting that hands-on experience. So, the peer certification training, certified peer supporter training is incredibly important. We do also love to support that with other trainings like mental health first aid, QPR, which is suicide prevention as well. Those are all trainings that someone can do within one day. And then chemical dependency counselor training also. Yeah, those are the things that we really think make a well-rounded peer supporter.
Great. And what would you say are some of the kind of the unique perks of being a peer supporter?
Really, sometimes we as individuals go through life, whether we're in the workplace or in social settings, and you never really get to talk or celebrate the things that you've overcome. And I think being a peer supporter is a true representation of that. You're a peer supporter because you may have a mental health diagnosis. You may be a survivor of trauma. You may be in recovery from substance use disorder. So it's almost like you're a walking example of someone that has overcome real struggles and trials and tribulations, or is living with and coping with real struggles in their life in ways where you get to talk about that. It's by identifying as a peer supporter, it's like we're welcoming individuals to ask us what we've gone through and how we've overcome it, for the sake of helping another person. And I think there's a lot of pride in that. And there's a lot of value in that. I wish we saw more people. You don't have to work as a peer supporter to get the peer support certification. I would love to see more people that maybe aren't even in the peer supporting role receive a certification as a certified peer supporter and use that when it's necessary. Because it really is a great opportunity to show pride in yourself, be examples to other people, and again, be a representation of someone that is willing to talk to you, that is willing to help you improve your life.
That's just really incredible. Thank you for sharing that and giving us perspective on this peer support role. Alex, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to do this interview and giving us insight into what it's like to be a peer supporter.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Hello, and welcome to this interview with George, a social worker in Ohio. Thank you, George, for being with us today. And could you just tell us a little bit about what you do as a social worker and kind of how you spend your day?
I work at a behavioral health agency. So my typical day is in the schools, even though we are community-based. During the school year, I get to the school about 8 o'clock. I connect with the teachers and administration. on specific clients that are having little issues in the schools, such as like behavior wise. I go from classroom to classroom. I'm in the classroom with the kids, providing services hands-on right then and there, teaching them their coping skills, redirecting them, assisting them with any needs that they may be having that can be challenging and cause maybe frustrations in the classroom. Once school is out, I stay maybe an hour later just to follow up with some teachers and get my documentation done. And if needed, I give clients rides home if their parents like send me a text or anything, if like they're unable to get them or something. And then in the summer, it's a bit different. We connect with the parents throughout the year. And then in the summer, we go pick up the kids and we take them in community settings to continue doing therapeutic behavioral services.
That's great. I didn't know you did so much directly with the kids. What is the kind of education pathway to kind of get this type of role, and how long did it take?
So there are 3 different roles. I am a TBS provider, so I provide therapeutic behavioral services, and my degree requires it's 4 years social work degree, and or you can have like a counseling or a psychiatrist degree or something related to the field. And then there are other positions, a therapist, same degree, except you need your license. Most provide you need like your master's as well. And if you're undergrad, all social work, then your master's will take a year to get. And then the third role is the community psychiatric support system or treatment provider. Sorry. Their requirements are they just need a few years working in the field with kids, not necessarily a 4-year degree. Just with some time working with like kids or in like school settings.
Okay, so you have a bachelor's in social work, and that was able to get you a job directly working with kids. And if you want, you can go get your license and maybe do more of the counseling therapy type stuff. But even with a bachelor's in social work, you're able to work directly with kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is one perk of this job that you would say is kind of a draw?
Say the flexible hours. We're required to work 40 hours a week, but we're able to flex our hours. So there may be days where I have an appointment of my own and I can leave a little early, but then make up that time another day. That helps a lot, especially like our mental health.
Yeah, flexible hours is great. What would you say are some of the job prospects out there? Do you think this is kind of a in-demand field right now?
Yes, I believe so. There are a lot of agencies popping up all over Toledo and Ohio. There are like several services that provide the same as us. So, and more are going into the schools and working with the schools.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to share about what you do as a social worker?
Yeah. So I enjoy this job as because I like working with the kids and I like teaching them coping skills and helping them process their feelings and emotions. So there are 2 different positions, kind of. There you can either be in an elementary school or you can work with high school kids. I personally work with elementary, so my clients are from kindergarten to 8th grade. And I enjoy the summertime because we're able to do more. We practice more mindfulness during the summer, like at the parks and stuff like that.
I've learned a lot today, so I really appreciate you taking the time to be here to do this interview with me. And, thank you for your continued work with students on their mental health.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Jess, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks.
We are going to talk a little bit about the role of a school-based mental health counselor, and I'd love to get a little introduction to you and how you got where you are.
Yeah, so I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I work for North Lakes Community Clinic, which covers kind of the northern half of Wisconsin, very rural. And I got into this, I think mainly because I just wanted to help people, and specifically people going through trauma. And I ended up doing school-based things when I was working with a large youth population in a day treatment and outpatient clinic, and really just seeing that need of how many kids could use services that can't access them. And so working with the local school districts to try to open up that access. And I really just fell in love with it and the whole model. And, there's a few drawbacks, but overall, it's been such a rewarding type of service to get out there. So it's just kind of grew and grew. And now I'm the director of our school-based services here. So
What would you say is the objective of the role of a school-based mental health counselor?
I would say there's probably two main goals to be a school-based provider. I think the first, and I guess they're interchangeable, not necessarily in order, but one of them would be to offer the same quality services that you would provide in the clinic, but getting that to the kids at the school. So quality services. And the second would be increasing access. On average, we attend an appointment at a clinic. Like, in order to attend an appointment at a clinic, it requires 2 to 3 hours out of the parent's day or the guardian's day and the student's day away from school. And that takes a really big toll when that student needs to be seen every week or every other week. So if we can cut that down to 30 minutes or 45 minutes out of that week, it nearly eliminates it for the parent if they don't have to miss work or any of the travel time. And the travel cost involved is eliminated. We are making a significant impact on improving access to mental health services for kids.
What would you say the education path looks like, or preparation path looks like for someone interested in this type of career?
I think it would be the same as it would be for the clinic. A lot of master's programs include kid-based things. So diagnosis or differential diagnosis for kids, engaging with parents, groups are definitely an option at the school. And a lot of master's programs do a really good job of including, all ages in how to treat that for mental health. If, of course, yours didn't, well, then getting some extra training on how to do kid-based mental health. You do not have to have play therapy. That's a common misconception, is that people have to be certified in play therapy, or they have to do all of these extra huge certifications on child and adolescent mental health. You don't need to. Unless you don't feel comfortable or competent in approaching that, then by all means, get all of that training. Otherwise, the paths that are led to get your licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, or licensed clinical social worker, those all do just fine. They do great.
Yeah, and with those 3 kind of different tracks people might take towards school-based mental health, you said professional counselor, marriage and family therapist, or social worker.
Clinical social worker, yep.
Clinical social worker, thank you. Are those typically a master's program that someone would take after an undergraduate degree?
Yes, yep. And there's a bunch of different titles out there for what those master programs are. A master's in counseling, or a master's in marriage therapy, or, mine was just a master in social work, but with a clinical specialty or clinical track. So that's an important piece, or you will not qualify for a licensure as mental health. So, and then, the time involved in that is really dependent on how fast your track is. So typically 4-year bachelor degree, most commonly in psychology or social work or sociology. And then however long your master's is, a lot of them are 2 years. But if you do part-time, that might stretch out. And then just the time involved in getting your in-training license. So a lot of people who work in school-based mental health are LPCIT, like the licensed professional counselor in training, or an APSW, or those kinds of things. And that's very doable. That shouldn't deter anybody from thinking they can't do it because they don't have their full independent license. There's lots of supervision out there for that. So.
Yeah, and so I'm hearing that after an undergraduate degree, there's a master's degree, and then after that, someone is actually able to earn money while they're getting their licensure.
Yes. So while the internship might not be a paid internship, or it's paid in experience, the once you graduate with your master's and you apply for your in-training license, you often have to, have an employer. So that could be the other catch in some time frame there, is finding an employer that will hire and take on an in-training LPC or LMFT or social worker or something. And then those are paid salaries. You don't have to work that 2 years and get all those hours as unpaid by any means. And oftentimes, your supervision that's required during that in-training period, your employer will provide.
Awesome. So paid on the job training.
Yes. Yeah. And I think of it as a really good, both the in-training license experience and if you can get an internship somewhere, even if it's not paid, are really good, like reverse interviews for you to see, is this the type of agency I want to work for, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit or a private or whatever it is. But also a really good time to try out different things to see what fits for you.
And how would you describe, generally speaking, like the job prospects? I know you might be most familiar with in Wisconsin specifically, but what's it looking like?
I would say the demand for it is huge. And so there are tons of places with open positions that are looking to hire both in training and fully licensed people. Even if you don't have a ton of experience working with kids, they will help build those skills. So I would say it is a very abundant in terms of open positions and options, both rural and urban.
Thank you so much for talking a little bit about this position today. Is there anything you want to share before we wrap up?
I think maybe just a few of the benefits of the position that I like to talk about. And it depends a little bit on your philosophy. And I hit on it a bit, that really that access. So the number of kids, it's one of the main perks that I like about it, is all of those kids that I see in my day, there's a fraction of them that would actually get to the clinic. So the impact that we have on our youth to help prevent those mental health struggles developing into some scary things as adults is one of the biggest perks. And that they can apply what you're doing in session immediately. They leave your room and they are immediately back into their school setting, in their social networks, and they can practice those social skills or that assertive communication or following through with their homework and getting those grades up, whatever it is, compared to 3 hours later or the next day if they come to the clinic. But one of the downfalls is kind of the speed of it. So like I said before, that you might only have 2 minutes in between sessions and the parent isn't there. So sometimes school-based isn't the best fit for a kid, and having to have that conversation with the family that the struggle would be better addressed through family sessions, including like our 5 and 6 year old kids. There's only so much we can do individually, because really it's the system we have to work with within that family system specifically. So I like to point those things out to people so they kind of know what they're getting into. It's a little bit faster paced. You don't have those parents right there, and you have to be a little bit more creative in how to get that parent engagement. But it's so worth it because these kids would just never have it.
Yeah, and I imagine the ability to connect with school staff as well about what's coming up for some of the kids and partnering on their needs might be a benefit.
Yeah. They spend the vast majority of their awake day at school. And so to be in that environment and being able to collaborate, as long as parents allow it, collaborate with those school staff about the student and their struggles, and to help them problem solve and practice things, or to hand the students off after a really hard session and say, hey, they might be coming in a little bit emotional, give them a few minutes, or could you check in on them later in the day, because I won't be able to be able to create that team around them in an environment that they're in for more time than they're at home, which is kind of sad, is also really powerful and harder to do from an outpatient clinic setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today to talk about your passion for school-based mental health.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Meredith O'Brien. I am with the Illinois Association for Behavioral Health, the Illinois node for the MHTTC. I am here with Carrie Coughlin. Carrie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am a school counselor at Cowden Herrick Junior Senior High, and it's my 3rd year there.
Okay, and then what is the age group for that? You typically, what is the age group of kids that you typically see?
So I have 6th grade to seniors, but if something were to happen, I would get called to the elementary.
Okay, and then what part of the state do you serve? What's the community like?
So I'm in rural central Illinois, so small town community.
About how many kids are in your school?
Our school is tiny. It is about maybe 200 for K-12.
Okay. What made you want to go into this career? Like, was there a pivotal moment in your life that you're like, I want to be a school counselor?
So I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I went to college and then didn't have a major for 2.5 years. And then my advisor basically said, this is the path of all your classes you've been taking. So there's probably a reason to it. And then I graduated with a bachelor's in psych and realized you can't do much and needed to do something else. So there wasn't like a pivotal moment until after undergrad, and I started looking at what else was out there. I was like, oh, I had really bad anxiety in school. I hated school. Maybe I can be an advocate for the kids who are just like me.
Nice. So what are the main objectives of your role from day to day?
So it really varies depending on your school district, but essentially, I think to sum it up, what we do the most, or what we essentially do, is just promote and acknowledge that every student in the school should have an equal opportunity to be successful outside of school.
Okay. And then what does your day to day look like? So do kids come to you when they have a rough day? Kind of what are the concerns you see in young adults?
So again, every day is totally different. So it could be a kid in crisis, paperwork, IEPs, scheduling, college prep, testing,
All the things.
kind of goes on. I mean, it just depends.
Yeah. So you said you got your bachelor's in psychology?
Mhm.
Okay, and so what was the process of getting your master's like?
So to get your master's in school counseling, you just need a bachelor's of, I think, any kind of bachelor's degree. And then I went through a 3-year master's program that I think all programs now have ventured away from school counseling as a track. So you go through a mental health counseling and then get an endorsement in schools. So I had a 3-year program after my bachelor's.
Okay, did you have any internships after that, or was it straight into the system?
The internship was embedded into the program. So it was 3 years of school with a 1.5 year internship in the program.
Gotcha. What would you say are some pros and cons of your job?
I think the most common answer to that is you're in education and you get the summers off. And I mean, I like the pro that every day is different because I would get so bored if every day looked the same. So I like the flexibility of it and that I don't have to stand in front of students and teach, but I can still advocate for them and have that avenue with them. But I would say a downfall is pay for sure.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you're just not flexible or adapt for it, I think it could be really stressful and you could burn out pretty quick.
So, what do you think is the most demanding part about your job?
Probably the fact that it varies so much. So, I mean, I could go into the day and think I'm doing this, this, and this, and not get any of that done, and then still have to have it done when it's due, you know?
Yeah. On average, how much do you think you do overtime for working?
I'm very solid on my boundaries, so I won't do anything before or after school. So I think it's just about like juggling the time management to make sure you get all the things done. Because at the end of the day, if a kid comes in crisis or they're suicidal, I mean, that takes priority over whatever you were doing.
I totally agree on boundaries with working between the time that you're given.
Contract time. You will not find me after.
Yeah. So comparatively to like if you were to do this job in Chicago, is there like much of a pay difference? Like, do you think there is some sort of competition between pay and salaries?
I think so, but I'm always torn between, is it really a pay difference or is the cost of living higher in Chicago? So like I looked it up and it was like the average range was like 30 to 70 in Illinois. Seems like a huge gap, but I don't know if that's just cost of living or I don't know. But I know from my position personally, my school board negotiated my salary, so it didn't start at the normal tier.
Right. Okay. When it comes going back to kind of like your schooling, was there plenty of scholarships or do you know of any loan forgiveness situations that you are eligible for?
I am not the best person for that. I don't know. I didn't do any loans, but I know there's like teacher forgiveness loans, and I would assume we would fall into that category.
Right.
I really don't know. I know that you still get that 6-month grace period once you graduate to repay loans, but I don't know. I know for masters in general, I think the financial aid is typically lower than undergrad.
Yeah. Did you go straight into your master's after bachelor's?
Yeah,
Did you go to the same school or different schools?
different schools.
Different. Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Did you have any other comments for anything you wanted to add?
No, is there anything you want to know?
I guess kind of going back to the burnout, like have you experienced it? And like if you have, has it been related to like paperwork or kind of what would you say if you were to experience it? What would you think it would be?
I think it can be really hard when you're taking kids in their most vulnerable moments and then listening and trying to soothe them and calm them and bring them back down. Because I mean, some of it's hard, like like abuse or neglect or DCFS involved, or I mean, some of the stuff can be really heavy. So I think burnout is super common if you don't have those boundaries and you take it home with you. I mean, me personally, no, because my master's like drilled burnout and how common it is. So I feel like because of that and most of my family working in schools and doing the opposite, like not having those boundaries, I've seen the toll it can take. So me personally, no, but I definitely see how strong it could be.
Yeah. Was there anything that your master's did not prepare you for this field?
Yeah, most of it. I think especially like I said, most of the programs are straying away from a school counselor program. You don't learn the aspects of like school, like testing, scheduling, like 75% of your job. Like, yes, I know what to do when a kid comes in crisis, but do I know how to make a master or give a state test? No.
Yeah, you weren't taught that. Yeah. That's more of like a teacher path.
Yeah, like we didn't have training in that. So that was more like learn as you go. Good luck.
Gotcha.
Which can be a downfall for sure.
Yeah. I think most careers are kind of a learned process anymore, but that's just my 2 cents.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.